Okay, hi. Welcome to Startup Therapist, where we focus on the people part of startups. And I am thrilled to welcome today's guest, Marty Nemko. Marty and I know each other for about 15 years, and I'll briefly introduce him. Although you may be familiar with much of his work, because he's worked with coming up on 5,000 executives and individuals to act as their coach and help them avoid mistakes and solve the mistakes that they've made along the way. He's a personal and career coach, but not just any coach. The San Francisco Bay Guardian named him the Bay Area's best career coach, and U.S. News, I believe, called you job coach extraordinaire, right?
Something like that.
What do you have, about 7 books published so far?
Yep.
Most recently, I think, How to Do Life, What They Didn't Teach You in School. And then, of course, Marty has a weekly program on PBS or NPR radio, which is Work with Marty Nemko. Is that a pretty good summary?
Pretty good summary.
Yeah. So my thought is that you are extremely well qualified to talk about the topics that we focus on at Startup Therapist, which are the people part, the soft stuff, if you will. And we'll tackle it from a couple of perspectives. First, from the entrepreneur perspective, and then second, for the entrepreneur who's building his or her culture, we'll talk about it in terms of his people or her people, and how to build a vibrant culture that makes people want to stay versus want to come seek out a career coach and figure out how to escape. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Good. Anything you want to add in terms of by ways of introduction, or did I kind of encapsulate it pretty well?
Did great.
Okay.
Go forth. Ask me a question.
Good.
Any question.
So let's start, Marty, with aspiring entrepreneurs. You've worked with so many people, including myself at one point in my career earlier, who are thinking about starting a company, thinking about leaving corporate life to join the ranks of the entrepreneurs. So I guess the first question is, what have you learned in terms of what makes those people successful? In other words, who should become an entrepreneur, who should not or is not wired to become one?
Right. One of the things that's certainly true, it's a dirty word, we're not allowed to use it, but it really is intelligence. Intelligence is required because you are nonstop solving problems. You don't have an infrastructure. You don't have an IT department. You don't have a legal department. You don't have an HR department. You are basically it. You're wearing all those hats. So unless you are really quite intelligent, which translates to solving problem after problem after problem, you're not going to make it because you can't afford to hire consultants and outsource all that stuff. So intelligence is number one. Number two is drive. You don't have the structure. There's no boss telling you to show up at this time, do this, here's the project, here's the deadlines. It's all on you. So if you are an inveterate procrastinator, that's a risky thing to be considering going to self-employment. So you've got to be kind of a self-starter. Procrastination, not a major part of your vocabulary. And three, you've got to be emotionally low maintenance. If you are somebody who gets despondent when the inevitable failures occur, and you're going to get depressed and get stoned or whatever, that's not going to work. You have to be resilient. When the shit hits the fan, in the end, you have to say, okay, what the hell am I going to do now? How can I solve this? I can't afford to wallow. I may be able to complain about it, say crap, for 5 seconds, but you've got to be able to be resilient. That's what it takes to be successful. And you need a business sense. There's a Jewish term called seichel. There is this business common sense that only some people have. The art of knowing when something really is inexpensive. And when is how can you get a high price for it? What really is there going to be a market for it? Where can you afford to say? Where can you afford to spend? That is a seichel thing that you have to know from back in your lemonade sales days. That you just have an instinct in that direction.
So in working with thousands of people, have you come to the conclusion that entrepreneurship can or cannot be taught?
Only it's like a television set. You can fine-tune a color television set to get the colors right, but you can't turn a black and white set into a color set. You've got to have those basic raw ingredients. Then you can teach some skills on top of those. But that is a four-legged stool of intelligence, drive, emotional togetherness, and business sense. Unless you start it with those, your stool's going to collapse.
So a lot of times in the Startup Therapist blog, we talk about a combination of IQ and EQ. It sounds like you think both are necessary, not just one or the other.
Absolutely, especially if you're not a one-person business. There are people who lack EQ, but who are so good at the business sense and the intelligence and the drive. You can be weaker in the EQ. EQ matters. It's very helpful. But in my honest heart of hearts, it's overrated. because it's politically correct to talk about EQ and not, it's not politically correct to talk about IQ. I have seen more successful people who have high IQ, who are perhaps boorish or too aggressive, who nonetheless succeed because they are brilliant and driven and emotionally low maintenance. Sure, is it good to have emotional intelligence where you're connecting well and reading well, and instead of telling them, you should do this because it's a great idea and here's why, it says, I'm wondering if it might be a good idea to do X. What do you think?
Right.
That's
right.
EQ, but I'm not sure that's the most important prerequisite for excellence in entrepreneurship.
When it comes to intelligence, obviously you'd love to have book smarts and street smarts.
Street smarts.
You think street smarts between the two is more important?
Oh, sure. The highway of entrepreneurship is littered with people who are book smart,
MBAs,
who have no common sense. That's part of the business sense thing.
Yeah.
I've seen many successful business people who don't have any degree, who dropped out of high school, who couldn't interpret Shakespeare, any more than they could interpret Chinese, but who understand how to buy low and sell high.
So everyone thinks they're smart. Have you found a diagnostic or a way for people to figure out if they should be even heading down this path?
That's a great question. There was a Cornell University study about 2 years ago that found that most people are too stupid to realize they're stupid. So, in the end, it's a dirty word.
Yeah.
But IQ tests and their correlates, which are SAT and GRE and MCATs and LSATs, there's no perfect predictor. But if you were somebody who scored high on those, let's say you did crappy in school, but you always managed to do well on the tests, that is a proxy for your ability to reason well, learn quickly, abstract ideas, be ideationally fluent. Those things really matter, even though we're not allowed to say they matter, because there are political implications for that. But they matter big time. That's how you might go about assessing your intelligence.
Presuming someone assesses and decides they are cut out for entrepreneurship, have you identified ways for that person or best practices for that person to figure out what kind of company they're best off to start? It could be a technology company, a coffee cart company, a retail. How do you get your arms around that?
The smart money is to avoid the other smart people. Smart people go into the sexy fields of biotech and high tech. You want to go far away from that because you don't want to compete. You don't want your competition to be the best and brightest. You want your competition to be dumb. And so a phrase I love to use is status is the enemy of contentment. If you go under the radar, away from the status, where your competition is less likely to be rigorous, because nobody who has ever graduated from Stanford or Harvard saying they wanted to, you mentioned carts, run a chain of hot dog carts. So your competition is going to be crappy, and yet in the end, you will feel good about your work and be much more likely to succeed if you are indeed trying this kind of under the radar, low status business. The other kind of thing beyond that, that's very important, going away from the status. But the other thing is, do not innovate, replicate. Smart people love to innovate because it's cool, it's a new idea, but then you're the guinea pig, and guinea pigs die. You want to take a proven formula, especially one in the retail environment, because retail businesses are, all of their IP, all their intellectual property is there for all of us to see.
Right.
If I walk into a burrito shop, I see how they menu. I see the ergonomics. I see the pricing. I see the location. I see almost everything except the recipe.
So that would be taking something that works in one city, bringing it to another, something that works in one industry, bringing it to a different industry, that kind of thing?
I would say the way I would do it is I may not even need a new city. If taking the burrito example, I would find the 5 busiest burrito stores in my city. And I would visit each one of them and be a detective. And I would watch, what are they doing right? What is good? And once I've got the best practices of all 5, I amalgamate the best practices of all 5 in mine in an awesome location. That's it. Doesn't need to be a new city.
Is there any part for those of our readers that do like technology, genuinely love technology, are there any unsexy parts of the technology field where they can ride the growth of technology without being subject, as you say, to that dangerous bleeding edge?
Right. You want to be a supporter to the industry. You don't want to be the innovator of the next, faster chip or the next RFID controller. You want to say, okay, you in this technology industry are developing sound cards. And Where you may have run into a problem could be supply chain and negotiating with the Chinese, not having enough guanji. Guanji is the networking connections. Or, what you have, your problem really is couriering. You're spending all this money on cab fares and whatever. Maybe I could provide a designated courier service for you. It's providing a service to those industries, thereby, or selling real estate to them, leasing real estate to them, something ancillary to the cool part of the business, which is, hey, man, I'm going to develop the next iPhone 9, man.
Right. So you ride the growth of that industry by serving it in other ways.
Under the radar.
Under the radar.
My favorite words is under the radar, so you have less competition.
I'm presuming you're a fan of businesses that don't require a lot of fixed capital or startup costs.
Absolutely. I love little consulting businesses where you're becoming a real expert at something. If, for example, the instrumentation of biotech, there's all kinds of work in genomics now trying to understand what genes express what proteins, and there are these machines that run these algorithms, they do these millions of assays, and there's some schmuck who is in the business of repairing those machines or servicing those machines. If you become the guru at that, I'm not expecting you to have a hand with your wrench, but you learn enough about it to find the guy who is the person who is not entrepreneurial, but who knows everything about how to repair those things. And you say, I'll pay you more money than you're currently getting, and I'll treat you with respect. You come work for me. And then I'm the front guy who goes to all the companies that use those assaying machines, and I say, we provide the best quality service imaginable at a fair price. That's the kind of business that can work.
What do you say to people that would say a service business or a consulting/service business can't scale or it won't scale? Does that matter? Should people care?
Yes, it should matter. Scalability is dangerous. Scalability, so many businesses fail because they insist that the ability scale. Because in order for it to scale, you lose too much control. And it's costing you a lot. You've got to delegate to people who don't give a crap as much about your business as you do. And so what happens is in location number 2 or 3, it gets cost overruns, stealing, low quality. Keep your eye on the prize. What's your eye on the prize? Your eye on the prize is making $200,000 a year for yourself and your family. And the most likely way to make $200,000 a year is a non-scalable business. One with a small, perhaps local chain that you can keep control over, and you keep your expenses down, and you don't have expensive storefronts, and you don't have a lot of employees who are basically a taximeter that spins wildly 24/7. You want to run a one-person business, maybe with an assistant to do some of your crap work. That's the fastest path to $200,000 a year.
And what happens when a client, you've worked with so many clients, client comes in and has aspirations bigger than that, maybe not for just financial reasons, but because they want to leave a legacy. They want to create something important that changes lives or touches people. Maybe they do want to make more money than $200,000, which in Manhattan doesn't go very far. What do you say to those people? How do they then, when they get to that level, how do they then take it to the next level?
2 things. First of all, of course, my job is merely to lay out risk-reward ratios. And if somebody says, for financial or cosmic reasons, I want to spin the dice, of course, I will then work on helping them make sure a product really is a true innovation, ask hard, Shark Tank-like questions of them, and control their risk by controlling costs, and then figuring out the smartest exit strategy. Is it really, do you want to create just enough IP so you can sell it to a bigger entity who can then afford to take the greater risk, therefore you're not spending so much? Mm-hmm. Where along, do you I really hate people who go into into that VC round there. We need an A round, we need a B round, we see, they're in there prostituting themselves, killing themselves, giving up pounds of flesh to their private equity firm or whatever. So I'm always still trying to control risk, because even if you want to make a big difference, and one of the other things I do to try to help people make a difference, give it away. Because it is so hard to make a difference by creating the product yourself. As long as you put your ego away, write your idea, give it away. Because trying to get big companies to sign NDAs and to claim the intellectual property,
they won't
do it. So you got this great idea, give it away. There's a million ideas. If you're trying to make money, replicate, don't innovate, and control your costs.
Okay, last question on the entrepreneur side, and then we'll switch to kind of the talent side. Do you see a difference, or how do you characterize the difference between entrepreneurs or founders who bootstrap a company and retain ownership of it? Maybe it doesn't scale, doesn't become huge, but they do control their own destiny, versus the others that do raise venture capital, do seek outside funding from angels or banks, and more of a leveraged model, and perhaps do want to, shoot for the stars. How would you compare and contrast what you see those clients on your couch?
Depends on their driver. If the driver is money, they see the dollar signs, and they all they're thinking about is exit, exit, exit. And to be honest, I don't have so much respect for those people, because when you get above $200,000, what are you buying? You're buying a 450 Lexus instead of a Camry. You're living in 3,000 square feet in a little tonier zip code. It's like you're selling out for shit. That really is the word. You had a beep because it must be the censor when I said shit. It was.
I've got a built-in censor software. No, I got another call. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's a mistake, not to mention the fact that 95, 99% of those who go into it because of the exit strategy fail, both because it's so hard to succeed, and it's hard to be driven day in and day out just because you want to make your number. There's got to be a feeling that you believe in the product, that you're interested in the quality of the product. Right. The exit strategy folks are just interested in creating smoke and mirrors, enough jazz. Like it's a cosmetic company. And there's nothing really special about the cup, but they spend a fortune on advertising now to build up their perceived value, and they're selling out, and it's like they're selling smoke. They're smelling, it's vaporware. Right. It's nothing.
So it has to be more than just about the money to keep the person's focus.
Again, some people are very money driven, but I think in terms of the arc of a person's life,
yep.
I have a hell of a lot of millionaire clients who sit drunk and stoned every day in their 5,000 square foot house in Danville. Danville's a fancy area in the Bay Area. The happiest people I know are a variety of people. Some of them are blue-collar workers who go and do their tile setting during the day and come home feeling proud of their work. Then there are people, I don't have a lot of happy corporate middle manager types, but I have people who run simple, small, crisp businesses where they feel they're the expert. They're the expert at buying and selling scrap metal. They're the expert at, right now there's this big stupid thing about ice cream sandwiches with gourmet cookies on both sides. They just know everything about the product, about hiring, about employee retention, about leasing, about insurance, about marketing, about cost-effective free advertising. Those guys feel great.
That expertise leads to employability for the rest of your life because you have a true skill expertise.
The truth is, most of the people who acquire that expertise don't want to be employed. They're happily self-employed. Yeah. The ones who were self-employed, who want to move to be employed by somebody else, they're usually flawed. They're either not that bright or not that driven. There's a problem there.
Okay. In the time we have left, let's switch to the other side. So you've also worked with, I'm sure, thousands of people been on your couch who hate their job, hate the culture, hate their boss, want to leave. Let's talk about what we can learn from that for the founder entrepreneur who wants to build a healthy, vibrant culture, a culture that's magical where people come and develop and want to stay, whether it's 2 people or 200 people. What can we learn or what can we teach entrepreneurs about what type of things they should do to build that kind of culture?
Most important thing is, as in that book, Good to Great, you got to get the right people on the bus. The most important thing is to hire slow and fire fast. If you place it, we are in an era of bullshit where so many job seekers just make up shit on their resumes, have been coached up the yin yang to be great in the interview, and then they suck in the real world. They use phony references. They have their girlfriend pretend they were the boss. So employers really have no idea. They hire resume writers. They have no idea who they're getting when they're interviewing people. So it is very important when you are hiring to rely not on openly advertised jobs, but to really query everybody in your network to recommend somebody they know, because your friends are not going to recommend some loser.
So personal referrals.
Personal referrals is everything. And most companies, really do. I think it was about 2 years ago, Yahoo stopped advertising any jobs, and it was only 100% of the jobs were from employees. And they would give a cash bonus if the person worked out.
Yep.
So personal referrals are great. I don't even think the money is necessary because that almost taints the process. You're saying, we want awesome A players to join our team. If you know somebody you think is awesome, we would love to hear from them. And that's the first thing. Then the second thing is to replace the bullshit interview questions with simulation. When you ask, tell me something about yourself, or what's your greatest strength or your weakness, or tell me about a problem situation you had, All of that stuff is so coachable and anticipatable. You're ending up choosing the person who is perhaps prepped most for the interview,
Right.
which could be inversely correlated with the best person, because really great people don't need to do all
They
that.
can think on their
preparation.
feet. They can digest facts and problems on the spot.
And their excellence will become immediately apparent without all that coaching and paying for a coach. So you avoid every coachable question, and instead you put them in simulations. You take the common but difficult tasks that the person would have to do on the job, and you say, do it.
It's almost like a job audition.
It is an audition.
Yeah.
It is like if their job will be running meetings with a bunch of techies who are experts at Ruby on Rails and Python, you have them run one of those meetings.
Got it.
5-minute meetings.
Yeah, and observe. Yeah.
And you can't afford to do that with too many people, so I recommend you start in the advertisement for the job. You say, anybody who applies has got to click on this and do this simulation online.
Yep.
Now, they could cheat and get some hired gun in there, but you let them know that anybody who gets interviewed is going to have to go online.
Right. So they'll opt out if they can't do it.
That's right.
Okay, so once you get the right people on the bus, how do you, especially in a place like San Francisco where there's almost zero unemployment of talented folks, people, have so many options. How do you keep those people on the bus when there's always a company across the street that can afford to pay more? There's always a startup that has a shiny penny.
This is the first thing I'm going to say that's going to be a cliche, but it's true. It's respect. If I'm hiring you, first thing I do is I bring you into my office and say, I will make this my highest priority. I would say to you, I say, Jeff, we did a very careful screening process of people, and you are our number one guy. It is a pleasure to welcome you to our team. And I do not believe in one-size-fits-all management. So I need you to talk to me. My job is to make you flower, help you flower. What do I need to do as your boss that's going to help you be the best damn Jeff Hyman possible? Now, that's not what you normally hear when people come on board.
Sure.
And you start with that, and you're already immediately on the right foot. I also encourage my person right away. I say, I want you to meet all of the stakeholders that are major stakeholders you're going to be involved in, and have the same chat with them. You're going to ask them, how can I serve you, and how can you serve me? So you're going to learn about the things that are not in the official employee handbook. You're going to learn what's really going on, what the needs are of people, what your needs are, and that's how things start. And then, everybody says they have an open door. I would have an open door. I'm here to answer your questions. There are no dumb questions. I want you to be a rock star. I'm going to demand a lot of you, but I want to give you a lot too. You come to me with your questions, your resource needs. I'm not going to always say yes, but I need you to do that. One more thing. Bosses either tend to be too extremely nice or too tough. It really is the middle ground. You want to be collaborative, but you also want to make crisp decisions if you can, and need to. So, and including fire the person. If you make a wrong decision, there was a study of 60,000 Gallup managers, and they tried to look for the commonalities. The number one most commonality is, as I said, they hire slow and fire fast. If you've hired somebody who, after a small amount of remediation, is not working out,
you're wasting your time. Sure.
It's going to work. You've got to cut the losses.
Yeah. The statistic that I typically use is that 95% of the time you ask yourself, why didn't I fire this person faster? Because
Exactly.
they're not going to change. So last question on this topic is, when folks are on your couch and they hate their job, they're miserable, they're complaining to you, what are the top couple complaints that CEOs or founders need to be aware of, that their folks are most likely going to say, gosh, I hate my job because blank?
First of all, the first thing I always do is everybody always externalizes responsibility, at least the people who tend to come for career counseling. So they're always blaming it on somebody else. So before I blame it on the company, I ask them to look inward. And I ask them about those things. Are you being smart enough? Are you working hard enough? Are you asking enough questions? Are you asking too many questions? Are you emotionally high maintenance? Are you sabotaging other people? Are you delusional in expecting work to be as fun as watching Netflix? I first have them look inward.
Yep.
But let's assume that that's not the case. And now when there really are legitimate problems in the workplace, the bosses very often are either they think that the product just is either not ethical, not worth the price. They're not dealing with something they believe in, or there is endless collaboration. There's a lot of complaints about collaborating. Collaboration is the new in thing because For political reasons, all hierarchies have become flattened. Everything is a team, consensus, etc. And they go nuts. Good people.
Meaning they just want a decision. Just someone make a decision already.
Or let them make a decision.
Right.
They want more autonomy.
Right.
They don't want to have get 3 signatures to blow their nose.
Right.
And so very often, whether it be in a government agency or a corporation, they're sick and tired of the endlessly slow collaborative process. And what ends up happening is in every collaborative process, when a decision has to be made, it's usually made at the lowest common denominator, that tepid plan that everybody can agree with. They hate collaboration. We say we love collaboration because we politically have to, but a lot of people hate it.
So I presume with that comes the need for the boss, the founder, the entrepreneur, to also not shoot people when they make a mistake or a bad decision. If you're going to empower people, they're going to make mistakes, and you have to, support them in those decisions.
Like everything else within reason. Of course, some mistakes. Big, expensive mistakes, there's a consequence generally. Now, you can't just encourage wild risk. You're encouraging cost-beneficial risk-taking. It's your company's money and your money, and you don't want them to be wild with your money. So not all errors are equally justifiable. One size does not fit all. A prudent risk that didn't work, absolutely, no problem. But a prudent risk, that can't be encouraged.
Especially with your senior folks. Good. Well, this has been very helpful. So, Marty, we talked a little about aspiring entrepreneurs, current entrepreneurs, and then building a culture. If people want to learn more about this, you've got a great blog. I know you've written thousands and thousands of entries. What's the best way to connect with that?
Well, kind of the portal to all of my craziness. I have written 3,000 articles.
Oh.
Is martynemko.com, where you can link from there to my blog, which has got my most current work. And my Twitter, I've had 3,000 Twitter tweets. I'm just addicted to everything. I'm a workaholic. I love my clients. I love writing. I love my radio show. So You'll get more Marty Nemko than you could possibly stomach by just going to martynemko.com. It's MartyNemko.
Got it. And I will include a link to it. And I'm very grateful for your time. And clearly there's a lot we can learn from you on this topic. So I'll encourage people to head over there.
Well, and I encourage, certainly the idea of the soft side of business is certainly an important component too. And I know, Jeff, you are a smart guy, and you're always trying to, do a great job. I remember when you in your previous business, you really wanted to. So I encourage people to also visit your site.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Marty.
Take care, Jeff.
Take care. Bye.